Welcome. We are here with our daily dose, or one of, I really shouldn't say daily, dose of the day. Today's dose. Today's dose. That works. Enough. I don't really like dose of the day. Brainstorming on camera. This is fun. And anyways, welcome. I've been mildly productive-ish. Yeah, mildly and ish. Make that are the contextual words that need to be fit with productive. It was a holiday weekend here in the States, and I didn't even realize it until Sunday. Apparently today, Monday, is President's Day. I don't fucking know. So we were really busy because people had work off and had a long weekend and da-da-da-da-da-da. So it was a long weekend, but I did grocery shopping today. I got food for the cat. And we're gonna do this, and that counts as my tasks. Yeah. I went to a bargain store today, and they had books on sale. I bought like 5. And I don't feel bad because all the books were under $10. So like one of them was $5. The other one was $5. There was one that was $3, $4, and $4. So like 5 and under. I got 5 books for 5 and under. I'm so excited. And the other thing is we're getting a little bit of traction, just a tiny bit, the tiniest of bit. We have consistent followers, and I sincerely appreciate you. You do not have to like stop commenting by any means. I might stop replying to them as often. I will try to. We'll see how many spoons I have in the day. But I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the feedback. Whether or not I directly respond to it, I am using it. I definitely read them. There's one of them, so I'm not very popular right now. So for right now, I read all of the comments. But so it's exciting. We're making new stuff, so I'm trying to keep shit fresh. So I got new books. Still have not gotten a library card though. That's still on today with this week's to-do list. All right, well, we've dilly-dallied, we've chatted and hashed it out, aka I've monologued at you guys for a minute. My cat is very fidgety, so if he makes appearances, he's having a rough day. He's in a mood, he's in a funk. I did have a very long work weekend, so I think that's part of it. I was gone for like almost 20 hours in 2 days. Over 20 hours in 2 days. I was gone for like 10-hour stretches, which is probably like normal for other people. I hate American capitalism. I hate capitalism. Anyways, let us begin because we have new books. The furball is here, but whether or not, can I scoop him? Will you let me scoop you? He will. Oh, Funky Man. Hi, Funky Man. Yeah, you don't like this, do you? No. Okay, bye, Funky Man. No, he did not go far. He just moved right out of arm's reach and sat down. The first book we are going to be reading from is, I want the sticker. I don't like price stickers on my books. Not on the front cover anyways. They put them on the back. I'll sometimes leave them because I like remembering. But the front, tell me what. Oh, you're one that rips. I am cursing too much. I need to stop. They will ban me. No, they won't ban me. They'll just take the video down and then. So bad at. I don't know how to edit. not working. I don't want the cover to be visible with it because I don't like it. And so I'm going to take it off, and we're going to do it in real time because real time is important, and not everything, we don't live life edited. Unfortunately, it's cool when things are, they make great storytelling. I definitely appreciate the art of a well-curated video or piece or whatever. Movies and theater are technically edited, right? It's a great storytelling tool and a great way of conveying information. And I think we forget, however, in our capitalistic society, in the way that we've overperformed curation, we forget the beauty in the mundanity, whether or not that's a word, it is now, in the mundaneness of life, in the tediousness, and the fact that it takes way too many minutes to peel a sticker off of a book because people put price stickers on front covers of books, as if the book itself is not art. And now there's sticky residue, but it takes a few minutes and it's tedious and it's stupid, and that's real life. Anyways, How Far You Have Come. Musings on Beauty and Courage by Morgan Harper Nichols. I'm afraid it's a little religious, but it seems very, very, very lightly, if at all. Meh. Excuse me, fidgety man, leave that alone. I am very distracted as per usual. Welcome to real life. We're just gonna read. How Far You Have Come by Morgan Harper Nichols. Musings on Beauty and Courage. We are going to script the introduction. First chapter is Georgia. Now this book is really beautiful. Like, the reason I got this book is because, like, it's all art. And, like, some of it's handwritten. There are parts that are, like, typed. Like these. But it's just, the whole book is just, like, illustrated and also handwritten. And the format really fascinated me. It seemed very honest, authentic, and human. Genuine. You like it. Anyways. This road holds our memory, the stories of travelers in between their dreams and their doubts. We head west along this faithful path to start again, hoping what we're searching for is just over the horizon. She laughs because she knows we will not find on the other side. Oh no, what we're looking for, we find as we go. Keep going, let the skies surprise you. Even when storm water clamors and the winds wreck your shores, you are free to start again. You are free to start again. For in this life there will be many roads we do not take, and on some mornings we wake and find there are bright orange barricades closing off entryways and bridges, lakes, and cityscapes we long to go and see. We have a duty to focus on the road before us, to dream of the destination, but never forget to delight in the drive. Record your mother's laughter in your mind, the secret sibling handshakes, and dad's knowing sighs. This is the fuel you'll need to journey wide. Invite the breeze in, windows down. Hear the sound of other wheels cycling over the ground. Let the air kiss your cheeks, and though no one looks and no one speaks, you are never alone out here on the road, this collective in between. And we're going to stop there. I like to keep the beginning short. There's a bookmark. Woohoo! You like it when they come with their own bookmarks. We are going to dabble in our plant books. One of the other books that I got is a paperscapes called The Tree, a collection of trees that transforms into a work of art by Steve Marsh. Again, another beautiful book. Two of them I got because they seemed like good stories. One of them I got because I was just interested. It's a book I've heard of, and I know the author. I've heard of the author. It's a political-ish piece. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I got it just so I could read it. But anyways, so The Tree, a collection of trees that transforms into a work of art by Steve Marsh. So each of these you can take out the extra and it becomes like a little bouquet, so to speak, if the book's open. Fascinating. So we're gonna learn about different trees. So introduction. There's a coconut palm. We're gonna show the first picture just because it's pretty. And that right there at the bottom is, like, you can kind of see how it says you take off the excess right here, and then you get like a little, all the trees like stand up. It's cute. I like it. Very pretty. Introduction. Easily ignored, taken for granted, often overlooked, but there when you need it most, the humble tree is a true hero of nature, home for many thousands of species worldwide, cleaning our air and supplying life-necessary oxygen. The diversity of trees can only be marveled at. From the redwoods growing to around 300 feet tall, the largest biological organisms on our planet, to the humble backyard shrub providing berries to keep birds fully fed throughout the colder months. There are those that live just decades, and those that have existed for thousands of years. Some trees around today saw the birth of Christianity, or were mere saplings at the time the pyramids were built in Egypt. They have witnessed countless historical moments and stood tall over the development of humanity. Trees bear us fruit, provide medicine, allow us to feast our eyes on the most vivid colors, and invite us to smell the most sweet fragrances nature has to offer, and they star in folklore and mythology across the ages. Many, such as the yew and oak, have created spiritual connections with humans over the course of thousands of years and are revered throughout the world. Trees are an intrinsic part of our cultural heritage. Over 60,000 species of trees exist worldwide. In this volume, a select and special number are beautifully illustrated, capturing the magic and poise of some of the most unrewarded species nature has to offer. Our woods and forests date back to the glacial retreat of the Ice Age, and across the globe our forests have existed for many thousands and even hundreds of thousands of years. We must value, care for, and protect these wonderful habitats to ensure their survival for millennia to come. Cork oak. Quercus suber. The leaf is ovate oblong. Its height is up to 66 feet. The fruit is dry, and the range is Mediterranean, Europe, and North Africa. The cork oak is a medium-sized evergreen tree, native to the western Mediterranean and southern European Atlantic coast, and found in forests across the region. It can live up to 300 years old and grow to 66 feet, although typically less, and is used extensively in cork production. There is believed to be over 4,940,000 acres of cork forest worldwide. The leaves of the cork oak are glossy green on top and have a gray down underneath. They are roughly oval oblong in shape, with spiked lobes and often curving margins. The tree has low twisted branches and a very thick, corky pale gray bark, from which it gets its name. Cork comes from the outer bark of the cork oak tree, which is harvested every 7 to 10 years, particularly in Portugal, Spain, and Italy. 50% of the entire cork harvest comes from Portugal. Cork is resistant to moisture and liquid penetration, which helps protect the tree, but also makes it a superb choice as a bottle stopper. A mature cork oak may produce up to 400 bottle stoppers per harvest. Because the tree can be harvested multiple times in its lifetime, cork production is considered to be sustainable. The first documented widespread use of cork came from the ancient Romans, who employed cork to insulate their houses and as shoes and floats for fishing nets. Cork still has many uses in modern times, on top of being bottle stoppers. It is made into shuttlecocks, pinboards, floor tiles, fishing rods, and baseballs. It also plays a huge part in the manufacture of musical instruments, especially woodwind, where it is used to create airtight seals. Lovely. We have another one with a bookmark. We love it. We love things that have built-in bookmarks. I will be taking this off because I don't like them. It's so orange, but I'm not gonna do it right now. Anyways, that's exciting. I'm really excited about that book. All right, next is This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. We are returning. We're gonna return to that, and I'm gonna look up something super duper quick. And by super duper, I mean probably the normal regular speed. But no, that was too far. No. Can we try again? Thank you. Yeah. I also find I was checking the comment to make sure I didn't miss anything because I think it's important to engage, especially in these early stages. And I genuinely appreciate people who appreciate random shit. So like, I think plants are really cool as well. I have a bunch in my house, clearly showed you guys last time. And I bought a book about trees. So I think all plants are absolutely fascinating. So anyways, we get to read about opium now. This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. I'm just gonna repeat their titles and their names often because I do not want to get told that I'm not giving credit. I'm very openly giving credit. My voice is simply reading other people's words. Opium. Prologue. Oh my. We just made it through the introduction, now there's a prologue. I love this. The narrative that follows this prologue is something of a period piece. A dispatch from the war on drugs near its peak, circa 1996 to 97, that itself became a minor casualty of that war. The piece originally appeared in the April 1997 issue of Harper's magazine, but not in its entirety. After consulting with several lawyers, I concluded that there were 4 or 5 crucial pages of the narrative that I couldn't publish without risking arrest as well as the forfeiture of our house and garden. The wrecking of our life, basically. 24 years later, those pages, which had gone missing after I hid them away, have been restored and appear here in print for the first time. The story began as something of a lark and ended in anxiety, paranoia, and self-censorship. At the time, my wife and I and our 4-year-old son were living in rural Connecticut, and I was writing personal essays about the goings-on in my garden. As a gardener, I'd become fascinated by the symbiotic relationship our species has struck up with certain plants, using them to gratify our desires for everything from nourishment to beauty to a change of consciousness. Early in 1966, my editor at Harper's magazine, Paul Toe, I'm not sure, sent me an underground press book called Opium for the Masses that had crossed his desk, suggesting there might be a column in it for me. I was immediately intrigued by the idea that I could grow opium and produce the most ancient of psychoactive drugs in my garden from easily obtainable seeds. I decided to give it a try, just to see what would happen. What happened turned out to be a living nightmare, as I found myself ensnared in a quiet but determined federal campaign to stamp out knowledge of an easy-to-produce, homegrown narcotic before it became a fad. Read today, in what we can hope are the waning days of the drug war, the piece feels overwrought in places, but it's important to understand the context in which it was written. Under President Clinton, the government was prosecuting the drug war with a vehemence never before seen in America. The drug war that they created were just they completely created it. They funded it, they created it, they started the recipe, and they handed it out to the masses. Anyways, the year I planted my poppies, more than 1 million Americans were arrested for drug crimes, mostly people of color, mostly black men. Just needs to be said. The penalties for many of those crimes had become draconian under Clinton's 1994 crime bill, which introduced new three-strike sentencing provisions and led to mandatory minimum sentences for many non-violent drug offenses. By the mid-1990s, a series of Supreme Court decisions in drug cases had handed the government a raft of new powers that had significantly eroded our civil liberties. The government also won new powers to confiscate property, houses, cars, land, involved in drug crimes, even when no individual has been convicted or even charged. Were these erosions of our liberties a casualty of the drug war or its objective? It was its objective. They created the drug war. It was literally just another way to continue to enslave black men, perfectly honest. That's who they gave them to. That's who they gave the drugs to. And then they created a 3-strike rule. So if you got caught with any type of offense 3 times, automatically jailed. They created minimum sentences so they could, prison is legal slavery. One more time, for the people in the back. Prison is legal slavery. Thanks. Welcome to my TED Talk. So, yes, the erosion of our liberties was indeed the objective of the drug war. And other people than just the black men that went to prison and many other, there were so many other types that got caught up in that shit too. They were the majority. They definitely were the fucking focus. America is founded in racism. Our Constitution and our legal rights are founded in racism and sexism on top of that, along with that. One is not better or worse than the other. They are both completely intolerable. So, until we play by different rules and change our system, the objectives of the United States is going to be to continue the racism and sexism upon which it was founded. President Clinton didn't start the drug war. That distinction belongs to Richard Nixon, who we now know viewed drug enforcement not as a matter of public health or safety, but as a political tool to wield against his enemies. I am gonna refrain from some commenting we need to read. In an April 2016 article in Harper's magazine, Legalize It All, Dan Baum recounted an interview that he conducted with John Ehrlichman, in 1994, 2 years before my misadventures in the garden. Ehrlichman, you will recall, was President Nixon's domestic policy advisor. He served time in federal prison for his role in Watergate. Baum came to talk to Ehrlichman about the drug war, of which he was a key architect. You want to know what this was really all about? Ehrlichman began, starting the journalist with both his candor and his cynicism. His name is so hard to pronounce, and I'm very sorry if I'm butchering it. Not so hard to pronounce, I'm just unsure. It has a lot of possibilities, and I'm just guessing. Hard to pronounce names to me means there's a lot of pronunciation possibilities. That's when something's hard to pronounce, because there's a lot of options. Not because it's actually physically difficult. Ehrlichman explained that the Nixon White House, quote, had 2 enemies: the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. I am so glad you included that quote. Thank you, Michael Pollan, for including that quote, because that right there. The thing, were these erosions of our liberties a casualty of the drug war or its objective? It was its objective. Quoted from the people who architected it. Architected it. That's, yep. What is the past tense of architecting? What is the verb for architect? Architecturing? Architecture is the verb. Fuck. Who architectured it? That just sounds wrong now. I don't know. English is hard. There's an asterisk after that quote that says, the quote has been disputed by some of R. Leichmann's colleagues in the administration. Baum died in 2020, so I was not able to ask him for documentation or an explanation of why he waited more than a decade to publish it. John R. Leichmann, who was President Nixon's domestic policy advisor, said openly in an interview, quote, "You want to know what this was really all about? He explained that the Nixon White House, quote, had two enemies, the anti-left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." End quote. And this is why when anyone's like, America, no. Capitalism and modern day American democracy, if that's what we're calling it, our system is racist and sexist and abusive and oppressive. It is not natural. It is a few assholes. I said it. Miserable people who are quite literally abusing and killing humanity for nothing other than their own desires. And not only humanity, but presently the world, our quite physical planet. I say it a lot and I'll say it again. There are more of us than them. So as soon as we stop infighting, as soon as we stop realizing there's a difference between the hippies and the black people, and realize that it was just the government trying to oppress anyone below them, which is everybody. And by the government, I mean the elites, because we all recognize that our government is also currently a puppet system for our corporations. Whoever has the most money. It's always been that. Whoever had the most money controlled the government. It wasn't actually always the people in the government. And sure, in the beginning, yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't fucking know. I didn't do enough history research on that part right now. That is actively able for me to recall. But, they're the same in the eyes of the elite. We're all the same. We're all scum. So watching us fight amongst each other and hate each other, go black and white and hippie and not hippie and country and city and blah blah blah, I don't fucking know, all the other boy and girl, men and women, all of those little divides, goth, punk, popular, pop, whatever group you belong to, your group is humanity. You can have your niches, you can have your people that you like better, that's fine, that's called friendship and community and relationships, and not everybody's supposed to like you, but everybody deserves the same fucking shit. I am cursing so much in this video, we're gonna stop. I'm gonna get this one taken off. It's not for kids, it's openly not for kids. I can make it PG-13, it's about, you have, I'll edit it, don't take it down, just send me an email that I have to edit it, YouTube, please. I'll stop, bitch. I'm gonna read. what your body looks like and what your body can do, and the likes and dislikes that you have, do not, in any type of shape, way, or form, delegitimize your right to be alive. Well, you should not have to struggle so hard. We have developed so much as a species, as humans. We have houses, bro. We also happened to regress as well in the past few, like, century or so, probably a little farther back. Centuries, 100 years, right? Half century, yeah. Last couple centuries, we've really been downsliding. Some other places got really good things, and then capitalism wiped them out. Capitalism and Abrahamic religions, because they're intertwined. You cannot have an Abrahamic religion without capitalism. And maybe not like capitalism in our current exact understanding of it, but in the ideological sense of capitalism. It is innate in Abrahamic religions. It is one of the building blocks. Although neither victory nor defeat was ever declared in the war on drugs, you seldom hear the phrase on the lips of government officials and politicians anymore. I suspect there are two reasons for their silence. As a matter of politics, the government has less need of draconian drug laws since declaring a new war in 2001. The war on terror has taken over from the war on drugs as a justification for expanding government power and curbing civil liberties. And as a matter of public health, it has become obvious to anyone paying attention that after a half century of waging war on drugs, it is the drugs that are winning. Criminalizing drugs has done little to discourage their use or to lower rates of addiction and death from overdose. The drug war's principal legacy has been to fill our prisons with hundreds of thousands of non-violent criminals, a great many more of them Black people than hippies. This, then, is the first historical context in which my account of growing opium in 1996 should be read. As a window on a dark and fearful time in America, when you didn't have to leave your garden to become a criminal and put yourself in I can't speak. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired and hungry. I'm doing great today. That's why I'm smiling so much, right? Inside thoughts. We're reading. We're reading to calm ourselves and to be present in the moment. The drug war's principal legacy has been to fill our prisons with hundreds of thousands of non-violent criminals, a great many more of them Black people than hippies. This, then, is the first historical context in which my account of growing opium in 1996 should be read, as a window on a dark and fearful time in America, when you didn't have to leave your garden to become a criminal and put yourself in serious legal jeopardy. But there's another historical context in which the piece can be read, and this one nobody was aware of at the time. The words opium and opiate carry a very different set of connotations today than they did when I planted my poppies in 1996. Now the words conjure a national public health catastrophe. But in 1996, there was no opioid crisis in America. What there was were maybe 500,000 heroin addicts and about 4,700 deaths. And about 4,700 deaths from drug overdoses each year. At the time, these tragedies were often cited to justify the war on drugs. But in a country of 270 million, this hardly qualified as a public health crisis. Parentheses, which is why the reason cannabis had to be added to the war's list of targets. Parentheses. Today, by comparison, deaths from overdose of opiates, both licit and illicit, approach 50,000 a year, compared to 4,700. They were targeted. And an estimated 2 million Americans are addicted to opiates of one kind or another. Another 10 million abuse opiates, according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. After the coronavirus, the opiate epidemic represents the biggest threat to public health. since the AIDS HIV epidemic. I can confirm that in many personal occupants. I am currently not abusing or using. The chief culprit in the opiate epidemic is not a virus, however, or even the illicit drug economy. It's a The chief culprit in the opiate epidemic is not a virus, however, or even the illicit drug economy. It's a corporation. What I didn't know when I was conducting my illegal experiments with opium is that at the very same historical moment, the pharmaceutical industry was planting the first seeds of the opioid crisis. The same summer that the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, was quietly cracking down on gardeners, seed merchants, writers, and other small-timers messing around with the opium poppies, a little-known pharmaceutical company called Purdue Pharma, headquartered in Stamford, Connecticut, 60 miles down Route 7 from my garden, had begun marketing a new, slow-release opiate called OxyContin. So for money, they stopped people who were using it safely and marketed it and openly addicted our general public to OxyContin so they could make a dime, bro. Launched in 1996, Purdue's aggressive marketing campaign for OxyContin convinced doctors that the company's new formulation was safer and less addictive than other opiates. Marketing campaign. A marketing not a study, not a research, no, a marketing campaign convinced the doctors. The company assured the medical community that pain was being undertreated and that the new opiate could benefit not just cancer and surgery patients, but people suffering from arthritis, back pain, and workplace injuries. The campaign produced an explosion in prescription for OxyContin that would earn the company's owners, the Sackler family, more than $35 billion, while leading to more than 230,000 deaths by overdose. So let's just go back. Okay. So in 1996, there was 500,000 heroin addicts. 4,700 deaths from drug overdose, less than 5,000 deaths. Today, opiates what? Deaths from overdose are 50,000 from opiates. 45,000 more than from heroin in 1996. And now, if you add all of that up, presently, the Sackler family is responsible for more than 230,000. That is 180,000 more. And these are rough numbers because technically it's over that because I'm estimating, I'm rounding. But that figure grossly understates the number of casualties from OxyContin. Thousands of people who became addicted to legal painkillers eventually turned to the underground when they could no longer obtain or afford prescription opiates. 4 out of 5 new heroin users used prescription painkillers first. So not enough people are using heroin, so they expanded it. Let's just kill humanity so we can make $1. At the same time, a war against illicit drugs was raging, ostensibly to stamp out a real but fairly modest public health problem. A legal, FDA-approved opiate was being pushed on people. There was an asterisk in the Sackler family. The Sacklers joined a tradition of illustrious American families whose fortunes flowed from the sale of opium and its derivatives, including John Jacob Astor and the Cabots, Perkinses, and Cushings of Boston, all much better known for their philanthropy and patronage. At the same time, a war against illicit drugs was raging, ostensibly to stamp out a real but fairly modest public health problem. A legal, FDA-approved opiate was being pushed on people, creating what became a genuine public health crisis. Read in this light. The drug war machinations looming over my garden and story seem almost comic in a Keystone Cops sort of way. They went that way. Humans have been cultivating opium poppies. I want Popeyes. I might try to find me a Popeyes. Humans have been cultivating opium poppies for more than 5,000 years as one of the most important medicines in the pharmacopoeia. For most of that time, we have recognized the two-faced nature of the flower and the powerful molecules it gives us. That it is at once a blessing to those in pain or on the verge of death, and a grave peril to any who would abuse it. To both the Greeks and Romans, the poppy flowers symbolized both the sweetness of sleep and the prospect of death. We're evidently not as good as they were at holding two contradictory ideas in our head. For today, who has a good word to say about opiates or opium? Blessing no longer comes to mind, except perhaps at the deathbed. But what is true of the opium poppy is true for all the medicines that plants have given us. They are both allies and poisons at once, which means it's up to us to devise a healthy relationship with them. Dosage. And also conscious relationship. Intertwined. As for the poppy flower itself, it may soon disappear from our age-old relationship to the opiates, as much stronger and cheaper synthetic versions of the flower's alkaloids come to dominate both the legal and illicit markets for painkillers. Something will be lost when that happens. One of the wagers of my experiment in the garden is that there might be some value in getting to know the opium poppy in all its aspects and power before its role in our lives, once so important, is downgraded to ornament. I am very slow today, clearly. We are going to read Heaven in Disorder by Slavoj Zizek. We're just going to read one chapter though. Here's to you, Julian Assange. There is an old joke from the time of World War I about an exchange of telegrams between the German army headquarters and the Austrian-Hungarian headquarters. From Berlin to Vienna, the message is, quote, "The situation on our part of the front is serious, but not catastrophic," end quote. And the reply from Vienna is, quote, "With us, the situation is catastrophic, but not serious," end quote. The reply from Vienna seems to offer a model for how we tend to react to crises today, from the COVID-19 pandemic to forest fires in the west of the United States and elsewhere. We know a catastrophe is pending, the media warns us all the time, but somehow we are not ready to take the situation quite seriously. A similar case is found in the fate of Julian Assange. His case is a legal and moral catastrophe dragging on for years. Just think of his treatment in prison. Unable to see his children and their mother, unable to communicate regularly with his lawyers, and a victim of psychological torture that threatens his very survival. They are killing him softly, as the song goes. But very few seem to take his situation seriously, with an awareness that our own fate is at stake in his case. The forces that violate his rights are the forces that prevent an effective response to global warming and the pandemic. They are the forces because of which the pandemic makes the rich even richer and hits the poor hardest. They are the forces that ruthlessly exploit the pandemic to regulate and censor our social and digital spaces, the forces that protect us, including from our own freedom. We are all too ready to protest the limitations on basic human freedoms imposed on Hong Kong by China. Should we not turn the gaze back on ourselves? Today, one should remember Max Horkheimer's old saying from the late 1930s, quote, "Those who don't want to talk critically about capitalism should also keep silent about fascism," end quote. Our version is, those who don't want to talk about the injustice done to Assange should also keep silent about the violations of human rights in Hong Kong and Belarus. Assange's well-planned and well-executed character assassination is one of the reasons why his defense never spurred a wider movement than Black Lives Matter or Extinction Rebellion. Now that Assange's very survival is at stake, only such a movement can, perhaps, save him. Remember the lyrics, written by Joanne Baez to Ennio Morricone's music of Here's to You. the title song of the movie Sacco and Vanzetti. Here's to you, Nicola and Bart. Rest forever here in our hearts. The last and final moment is yours. That agony is your triumph. There were mass gatherings all around the world in defense of Sacco and Vanzetti, and the same is needed now in defense of Assange, although in a different form. Assange cannot die, for even if he dies, or disappears in a US prison cell like the living dead, that agony will be his triumph. He will die in order to live on in all of us. This is the message we all must deliver to those who hold his fate in their hands. If you kill a man, you create a myth that will continue to mobilize thousands. '28. Biden on Putin's lack of soul. When I went like this, it means parentheses. I'm not throwing up gang signs. I am far from having any admiration for Putin or Trump, but what Joe Biden said in a recent interview with George Stephanopoulos made me almost nostalgic for some aspects of the Trump years. When Biden was asked if he believes Putin is a killer, he replied, "I do." He also confirmed reports that in 2011, while serving as US Vice President, he personally told Putin that the latter did not, quote, have a soul. I wasn't being a wise guy. I was alone with him in his office, Biden said. What does this mean? That Putin could have killed him? That's how it came about. It was when President George W. Bush had said, I've looked in his eyes and saw his soul. I said, I looked in your eyes and I don't think you have a soul. And he looked back and said, we understand each other. What the hell was this supposed to mean? An admission from Putin that he has no soul while Biden has one, or that they truly despise each other? Putin's quick reply was masterful, wishing Biden good health and inviting him to a public debate about big existential and ethical issues on Zoom. Biden's strong words stand in sharp contrast to Trump, who, in 2017, when Fox News host Bill O'Reilly called Putin a killer, suggested that America's conduct was just as bad as that of the Russian president. There are a lot of killers. We've got a lot of killers, Trump said. You think our country's so innocent? Trump displayed a dose of honest realism here. Biden's claim about Putin having no soul, on the other hand, is simply wrong. Monstrous killers do have a soul, a rich inner life. This is seen in the way they like to produce fantasies that somehow justify their terrible acts. Behind every big political crime, there is a poet or a religious myth. Concretely, there is no ethnic cleansing without poetry. Why? Because we live in an era that perceives itself as post-ideological. Since great public causes no longer have the force to mobilize people for mass violence. Since great public causes no longer have the force to mobilize people for mass violence, a larger sacred capital C cause is needed, which makes petty individual concerns about killing seem trivial. Religion or ethnic belonging fit this role perfectly. Of course, there are cases of pathological atheists who are able to commit mass murder just for pleasure, but they are rare exceptions. The majority needs to be anesthetic. Nope, anesthesia. Anesthetized. Anesthetized. That one's actually, I don't mean hard to, yep. There are so many options and I can't figure it out. Anesthetized, I want to know how to pronounce this. STH. Pronunciation, please.
Anesthetize.
Anesthetize. Ah, fuck yes. I was kind of close. Anesthetized. Anesthesia. Anesthetized. Okay. The majority needs to be anesthetized against their elementary sensitivity to the other's suffering. And for this, a sacred capital C cause is needed. Anesthetize as in anesthesia, as in the thing that makes you numb and not feel anything and go to sleep. So essentially, you need to be utterly and completely unaware and numb to anyone else's suffering. And in order to have that, you need to have a sacred capital C cause, which religion has very much capitalized on. Religious ideologists usually claim that, true or not, religion makes some otherwise bad people do some good things. Today, one should rather stick to Steve Weinberg's claim that while, with or without religion, good people can do good things and bad people can do bad things, only religion can make good people do bad things. So if I am against Putin, it is not because he has no soul, but because of what is in his soul. There's a passage in his 2019 interview with the Financial Times which exemplifies how he really speaks from his heart. Here, he solemnly declared his zero tolerance for spies who betray their country, saying, quote, "Treason is the gravest crime possible, and traitors must be punished." End quote. It is clear from this outburst that Putin has no personal sympathy for Snowden or Assange. He only helps them to annoy his enemies, and one can only imagine the fate of an eventual Russian Snowden or Assange. No wonder that, in another interview, Putin said that although Snowden is not a traitor, he cannot understand how Snowden could have done what he did to his country. Here we get a taste of Putin's soul and of how his mind operates. Denying that your political enemy has a soul is nothing less than a regression to vulgarity, which rhymes with other of Biden's gaffes. In support of Barack Obama in 2007, for example, he said, quote, "I mean, you got the first mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man." End quote. What these examples indicate is that if Biden's presidency is to be better than Trump's, it will not be because of his soul. The less he relies on his soul, the better for all of us. I appreciate you sticking all the way to the end. It's been a bit of a coming. We are going to end, as we do, with Douglas Adams, The Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which we are reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And we are in chapter 34. I love Slavoj Zizek, by the way. I think he is brilliant. You should, if you're watching me on YouTube, you should go check him out. Type his name and watch his stuff. He is absolutely brilliant. Chapter 34. The air car rocketed them at speeds in excess of R-17 through the steel tunnels that led out onto the appalling surface of the planet, which was now in the grip of yet another drear morning twilight. Ghastly gray light congealed on the land. R is a velocity measure, defined as a reasonable speed of travel that is consistent with health, mental well-being, and not being more than, say, 5 minutes late. It is therefore clearly an almost infinitely variable figure according to circumstances, since the first two factors vary not only with speed taken as an absolute, but also with awareness of the third factor. Unless handled with tranquility, this equation can result in considerable stress, ulcers, and even death. R-17 is not a fixed velocity, but it is clearly far too fast. The air car flung itself through the air at R-17 and above, deposited them next to the Heart of Gold, which stood starkly on the frozen ground like a bleached bone, and then precipitately hurled itself back in the direction whence they had come, presumably on important business of its own. Shivering, the four of them stood and looked at the ship. Beside it stood another one. It was the Blagulon Kappa police craft, a bulbous, shark-like affair, slate green in color and smothered with black stenciled letters of varying degrees of size and unfriendliness. The letters informed anyone who cared to read them as to where the ship was from, what section of the police it was assigned to, and where the power feeds should be connected. It seemed somehow unnaturally dark and silent, even for a ship whose two-man crew was at that moment lying asphyxiated in a smoke-filled chamber several miles beneath the ground. It is one of those curious things that is impossible to explain or define, but one can sense when a ship is completely dead. Ford could sense it and found it most mysterious. A ship and two policemen seemed to have gone spontaneously dead. In his experience, the universe simply didn't work like that. The other three could sense it too, but they could sense the bitter cold even more and hurried back into the heart of gold, suffering from an acute attack of no curiosity. Ford stayed and went to examine the Blagulon ship. As he walked, he nearly tripped over an inert steel figure lying face down on the cold dust. "Marvin!" he exclaimed. "What are you doing?" "Don't feel you have to take any notice of me, please," came a muffled drone. "But how are you, metal man?" said Ford, very depressed. "What's up?" "I don't know," said Marvin. "I've never been there." "Why," said Ford, squatting down beside him and shivering, "are you lying face down in the dust?" "It's a very effective way of being wretched," said Marvin. "Don't pretend you want to talk to me. I know you hate me." "No, I don't." "Yes, you do. Everybody does. It's part of the shape of the universe. I only have to talk to somebody and they begin to hate me. Even robots hate me. If you just ignore me, I expect I shall probably go away." He jacked himself up to his feet and stood resolutely facing the opposite direction. "That ship hated me," he said dejectedly, indicating the police craft. "That ship," said Ford in sudden excitement. "What happened to it? Do you know?" "It hated me because I talked to it." "You talked to it?" exclaimed Ford. "What do you mean you talked to it?" "Simple. I got very bored and depressed, so I went and plugged myself into its external computer feed. I talked to the computer at great length and explained my view of the universe to it," said Marvin. "And what happened?" "It committed suicide," said Marvin, and stalked off back to the Heart of Gold. Chapter 35. That night, as the Heart of Gold was busy putting a few light years between itself and the Horsehead Nebula, Zaphod lounged under the small palm tree on the bridge, trying to bang his brain into shape with a massive pan-galactic gargle blasters. Ford and Trillian sat in a corner discussing life and matters arising from it, and Arthur took to his bed to flip through Ford's copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Since he was going to have to live in the place, he reasoned, he'd better start finding out something about it. He came across this entry. It said, "The history of every major galactic civilization tends to pass through three distinct and recognizable phases, those of survival, inquiry, and sophistication, otherwise known as the how, why, and where phases. For instance, the first phase is characterized by the question, how can we eat? The second by the question, why do we eat? And the third by the question, where shall we have lunch?" He got no further before the ship's intercom buzzed into life. "Hey, Earthman, you hungry, kid?" said Zaphod's voice. Well, yes, a little peckish, I suppose," said Arthur. "Okay, baby, hold tight," said Zaphod. "We'll take a quick bite at the restaurant at the end of the universe." And that is the end of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The next is the restaurant at the end of the universe, and we'll start that next time. My throat is sore as for no reason. I don't know. We actually got this one under an hour. I'm legitimately going to keep it under an hour. I appreciate you all for coming. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining me for today's dose. Today's dose of D. Thanks for reading with me. Check it out. Read these books by yourself. Do what you want to do. I'll see y'all next time. Deuces. Bye.